Broken vow. Lysara Rathmore had always been told not to stray too far into the woods. But the night she did, the world shifted. The howling began. The torches flickered with an unseen wind. And then he appeared golden-eyed, broad-shouldered, his voice dark as the storm rolling in behind him. "You've walked too far," he murmured. "Now you belong to me." Chapter 1. The Whispers of Hollow Creek. The scent of wood smoke and damp earth clung to the air, a familiar comfort that had always grounded Lysara Rathmore. Hollow Creek, nestled deep within the folds of the Whisperwood Mountains, was a place of enduring quiet, a refuge from the relentless churn of the outside world. At 57, Lysara carried the weight of years lived, etched in the fine lines around her eyes and the silver threading through her once raven hair. But there was a resilience in her gaze, a quiet strength that spoke of battles fought and won, mostly within the silent chambers of her heart. She adjusted the worn leather satchel on her shoulder, the familiar weight of her sketching tools a comforting presence. The late afternoon sun cast long, dancing shadows through the ancient trees, painting the forest floor in hues of gold and amber. Hollow Creek was more than just her home, it was a part of her, woven into the very fabric of her being. Her grandmother, Alara, had always said that the woods held secrets, whispered on the wind to those who knew how to listen. Lysara had spent a lifetime learning to decipher those whispers, finding solace in the rustling leaves and the murmur of the creek that gave the village its name. Alara had also warned her, countless times, about the dangers that lurked beyond the familiar trails. "The woods are beautiful, child," she'd say, her voice raspy with age and wisdom, "but they are also wild. Respect their boundaries, and they will respect yours. Stray too far, and you might find yourself lost in more ways than one." Lysara had always heeded those warnings, content with the quiet rhythm of her life. She'd known loss, the sharp, searing pain of her husband, Thomas, taken too soon by a sudden illness 15 years prior. The grief had nearly consumed her, leaving her adrift in a sea of sorrow. But the woods, with their unwavering presence, had slowly pulled her back from the brink, offering a silent promise of healing. She'd poured her grief into her art, capturing the beauty of Hollow Creek in charcoal and watercolor, each stroke a testament to her enduring spirit. Today, however, a restless energy thrummed beneath her skin. The familiar paths felt too confining, the usual vistas too predictable. A whisper, not of the wind but of something deeper, something primal, tugged at her, urging her further into the woods than she'd ever ventured before. It was a feeling she couldn't explain, a sense of anticipation mingled with a faint tremor of unease. She passed the ancient oak, its gnarled branches reaching skyward like the arms of a forgotten god. This was the marker, the unspoken boundary beyond which the villagers rarely strayed. Beyond lay the Hollowfong territory, a place shrouded in whispered legends and half-remembered tales of creatures that walked the line between man and beast. Lysara had always dismissed them as folklore, stories meant to frighten children and keep them close to home. But today, the stories felt different, imbued with a weight they hadn't held before. The air grew cooler, the sunlight filtering through the dense canopy in fractured rays. The sounds of the village faded behind her, replaced by the rustling of unseen creatures in the undergrowth and the haunting cry of a distant hawk. She found herself drawn to a narrow, overgrown path, barely discernible beneath a carpet of fallen leaves. It was as if the woods themselves were beckoning her, inviting her to uncover a secret that had been waiting for her all along. Her heart beat faster, a mixture of apprehension and excitement swirling within her. She told herself it was just the thrill of exploring something new, of pushing beyond the familiar boundaries of her life. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. It was a feeling of inevitability, as if she were walking a path laid out for her long ago, a path that led to a destiny she couldn't yet comprehend. The path wound deeper into the heart of the woods, the trees growing taller and more imposing, their branches intertwined overhead, forming a natural cathedral. The air grew thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, mingled with a faint, musky odor, she couldn't quite place. It was a scent both wild and alluring, a scent that stirred something primal within her. She stopped at a small clearing, bathed in the ethereal glow of the setting sun. A sense of profound stillness settled over her, a silence so complete that it felt almost palpable. It was as if the entire forest held its breath, waiting. And then she heard it. A low growl, resonating from the depths of the woods, a sound that sent a shiver of both fear and fascination down her spine. The world seemed to hold its breath. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she was no longer alone. Something was watching her, and the whispers of Hollow Creek suddenly felt far, far away. The feeling that she had crossed a threshold, a point of no return, settled heavily in her chest. What had she done? Chapter 2. The Night of Shifting Shadows. The growl echoed again, closer this time, sending a jolt of adrenaline through Lysara's veins. Her hand instinctively went to the small, silver wolf pendant that hung around her neck, a gift from her grandmother. Alara had called it a protector, a charm against the darkness that lurked in the deepest parts of the Whisperwood. Lysara had always worn it more out of sentimentality than belief, but now, her fingers tightened around it, seeking a reassurance she wasn't sure it could provide. She scanned the surrounding trees, her eyes straining to pierce the gathering gloom. The forest, once a place of solace, now felt menacing, alive with unseen eyes and unheard whispers. The scent she'd noticed earlier, that musky, animalistic odor, was stronger now, almost overpowering. It was a scent that spoke of wildness, of untamed power, a scent that both terrified and intrigued her. A twig snapped nearby, and Lysara whirled around, her heart pounding in her chest. She saw nothing, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The air crackled with an unseen energy, a palpable tension that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She told herself it was just an animal, a deer or a fox, but deep down, she knew it was something more. Something different. Then the shadows shifted. Not the natural movement of light and darkness, but a deliberate, purposeful reshaping of the gloom. From the deepest shadows, a figure emerged, slowly, deliberately, as if materializing from the very fabric of the night. He was tall, immensely so, with a breadth of shoulder that seemed to defy the natural proportions of a man. He moved with a fluid grace, a predator's confidence, that sent a shiver of both fear and a strange, unsettling fascination through Lysara. As he stepped into the fading light, she saw his eyes. They were the color of molten gold, glowing with an inner light that seemed to pierce the darkness. They were the eyes of a wolf, wild and untamed, yet possessing an intelligence, a depth of awareness, that was undeniably human. Her breath caught in her throat. He was the most terrifyingly beautiful thing she had ever seen. His hair was the color of midnight, thick and unruly, framing a face that was both rugged and strikingly handsome. High cheekbones, a strong jawline, and a mouth that hinted at both a capacity for cruelty and a surprising tenderness. He was dressed in dark clothing, simple but well-made, that seemed to blend seamlessly with the shadows around him. He exuded an aura of power, of ancient secrets and untamed strength. "You've walked too far," he murmured, his voice a low rumble that resonated deep within her chest. It was a voice that spoke of the wild, of the wind howling through the mountains and the thunder rolling across the plains. It was a voice that seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her soul. Lysara found herself unable to speak, unable to move. She was caught, trapped between fear and a strange, compelling curiosity. She wanted to run, to flee back to the safety of Hollow Creek, but her legs felt rooted to the spot, her body betraying her will. He took a step closer, and she instinctively recoiled, her hand tightening around the silver wolf pendant. He stopped, his golden eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, vulnerable, as if he could see straight through her defenses, straight into the deepest recesses of her heart. "Don't be afraid," he said, his voice softer now, but still carrying that underlying current of power. "I won't hurt you." Not unless you give me reason to. Lasara finally found her voice, though it trembled with a mixture of fear and defiance. Who are you? A faint smile touched his lips, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You may call me Kalen, he said. And you, Lasara Rathmore, have trespassed onto Holofong territory. The name sent a jolt of recognition through her. Holofong. The name from the legends, the stories her grandmother had warned her about. The creatures that walked the line between man and beast. Werewolves. She'd always dismissed them as folklore, but now, standing before Kalen, she knew they were real. And she was standing in their territory. I didn't know, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I got lost. Kalen's golden eyes narrowed slightly. Lost? He repeated, his voice laced with a hint of skepticism. Or drawn. Lasara felt a flush of heat creep up her neck. She couldn't deny the truth in his words. She had been drawn, pulled by an unseen force, a whisper that had led her straight to him. I don't know, she admitted, her voice shaking. I felt compelled to come here. Kalen studied her for a long moment, his gaze unwavering. Then he nodded slowly, as if coming to a decision. The woods speak to those who are ready to listen, he said. And sometimes, they call those who are meant to be found. He tilted his head, a strange light flickered at the back of his golden irises. Now you belong to me. The torches that always lit the edges of the clearing old magic, Alara had called it, flickered and dimmed, the wind seeming to swirl around them, centered on them, closing them in. The whispers of Hollow Creek were completely gone now, replaced by a profound, heart-stopping, and terrifying awareness of him. Chapter 3. A pact sealed in moonlight. Kalen's words, now you belong to me, hung in the air, heavy and absolute. They weren't a threat, not exactly, but a statement of fact, a declaration of an ancient law Lasara didn't understand. The flickering torches cast dancing shadows on his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his cheekbones and the intense glow of his golden eyes. He exuded an aura of power, of primal dominance, that made her acutely aware of her own vulnerability. She swallowed hard, trying to gather her scattered thoughts. Belong to you? She repeated, her voice trembling. I don't understand. I'm not property. Kalen's lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Not property, Lasara, he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath her feet. Bound. There are laws that govern this place, ancient pacts that predate your village, your very existence. You crossed the boundary. You heard the call. And now, you are bound to the Holofong. Lasara's mind reeled. Ancient pacts? Bound? It sounded like something out of a fairy tale, a nightmare. Yet, standing here, facing Kalen, she knew it was real. The fear that had been building within her reached a crescendo, threatening to overwhelm her. But beneath the fear, a spark of defiance flickered. I don't accept that, she said, her voice gaining a bit of strength. I didn't ask to be bound. I don't even know what that means. Kalen took a step closer, and Lasara instinctively flinched, her hand tightening around the silver wolf pendant. He stopped, his golden eyes softening slightly, as if sensing her fear. It means, he said, his voice gentler now, that your fate is now intertwined with ours. That you are under our protection and subject to our laws. It means that you are no longer free to simply walk away. Protection? Lasara thought bitterly. It felt more like imprisonment. She looked around the clearing, the flickering torches casting an eerie glow on the surrounding trees. The forest, once a place of refuge, now felt like a cage. And what are your laws? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kalen's gaze held hers, unwavering. Loyalty. Respect. Obedience, he said, each word carrying the weight of centuries. And acceptance. Acceptance. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Acceptance of what? Of him? Of the Holofong? Of this strange, terrifying new reality? She looked into his eyes, those mesmerizing golden eyes, and saw something beyond the primal power, beyond the wolf. She saw loneliness, a weariness that resonated with her own. She saw a burden, a weight of responsibility that he carried with a stoic grace. And she saw a flicker of something else, a hint of curiosity, perhaps even a trace of hope. It was that flicker, that tiny spark of something human in his otherwise otherworldly gaze, that gave her pause. It was that flicker that made her question her own fear, her own preconceived notions about the Holofong. What happens now? She asked, her voice still trembling, but with a newfound thread of curiosity woven through it. Kalen's expression remained unreadable, his face a mask of ancient secrets. Now, he said, his voice a low murmur, we begin. We will teach you our ways, show you the truth of who we are. And you, Lasara Rathmore, will learn to accept your place in this world. He extended his hand towards her, his palm open, an invitation and a command. It was a gesture that spoke of both power and vulnerability, of a willingness to share a secret, a burden, with her. Lasara hesitated. Her mind screamed at her to run, to escape while she still could. But her feet remained rooted to the spot, her body betraying her fear. She looked at his hand, strong and calloused, yet somehow gentle. She looked at his face, a mixture of wildness and weariness, of power and something else she couldn't quite name. And then, slowly, tentatively, she reached out and placed her hand in his. The moment her skin touched his, a jolt of energy surged through her, a wave of heat that spread from her fingertips to the very core of her being. It was a feeling both terrifying and exhilarating, a feeling of connection, of a bond being forged. The moon, full and luminous, emerged from behind a bank of clouds, bathing the clearing in its silvery light. As the moonlight touched them, a faint, ethereal glow surrounded their joined hands, a visible manifestation of the pact that had just been sealed. A low howl, mournful and triumphant, echoed through the woods. It was done. She felt his fingers tighten around hers, a possessive, protective gesture. The air shifted, subtly, irrevocably. She had no choice but accept the pact. The decision was sealed, not in words, but in moonlight and a touch. She couldn't imagine what would come next, what would become of her, but she knew that everything had changed. Chapter 4. Echoes of a Forgotten Past. The warmth of Kalen's hand, surprisingly human despite the underlying strength, was the only anchor in a world that had tilted on its axis. The moonlight, casting an ethereal glow around them, seemed to solidify the invisible bond that had formed between them. Lasara felt a strange pull, a sense of connection that defied logic and reason, a feeling that both terrified and intrigued her. Kalen didn't release her hand. Instead, he turned, his grip firm but gentle, and began to lead her deeper into the woods, away from the clearing and the flickering torches. She stumbled slightly, her legs still unsteady, her mind racing to process the enormity of what had just happened. Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, the sound swallowed by the rustling leaves and the soft hooting of an owl. "To my home," Kalen replied, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air around them. "To Holofong Hall. It is time you learn the truth about who we are and who you are now becoming." Holofong Hall. The name conjured images of a grand, imposing structure, a fortress hidden deep within the woods, a place of ancient secrets and untamed power. Lasara imagined dark stone walls, towering turrets, and echoing hallways, a place both forbidding and alluring. As they walked, Kalen spoke, his voice a calming presence in the unsettling darkness. He told her of the Holofong, of their history, their traditions, their connection to the Whisperwood, and the creatures that dwelled within it. He spoke of a time long ago when humans and werewolves lived in harmony, sharing the land and respecting each other's ways. He spoke of a betrayal, a broken trust that had led to centuries of conflict and mistrust. The humans feared what they didn't understand, he said, his voice laced with a hint of bitterness. They hunted us, drove us into the shadows, forced us to hide our true nature. They built their villages, their fences, their laws, to keep us out, to keep themselves safe. Lasara listened, her heart aching with a strange sense of empathy. She thought of her own village, of the warnings her grandmother had given her, of the fear that had been instilled in her from a young age. She began to understand the source of that fear, the deep-seated prejudice that had been passed down through generations. But not all humans are like that, she said, her voice hesitant. There are those who understand, who respect the wild. Kalen glanced at her, his golden eyes searching her face. There are, he acknowledged, but they are few and far between. And they are often the ones who suffer the most. His words resonated with a deep truth, a truth that Lasara had glimpsed in her own life. She had always felt a connection to the woods, a sense of belonging that she couldn't explain. She had always felt different, an outsider in her own village, drawn to the wild places that others feared. As they walked, she began to notice the subtle signs of the Hollowfang's presence. The carefully placed stones that marked a hidden path, the faint scent markings on the trees, the almost imperceptible sounds of movement in the undergrowth. It was a world that had always existed, just beyond her perception, a world she was now being invited to enter. The trees began to thin, and ahead, she saw a faint glow, a warm, inviting light that beckoned her forward. They emerged into a clearing, and Lasara gasped. Hollowfang Hall was not the imposing fortress she had imagined. It was a sprawling, ancient manor house, built of warm, honey-colored stone, nestled amidst a grove of ancient oaks. It looked as though it had grown organically from the earth itself, its walls covered in ivy and climbing roses, its windows glowing with a soft, golden light. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, a place of peace and tranquility, a place that felt strangely familiar. It was a place that whispered of home, of belonging, of a connection to something ancient and powerful. "Welcome to Hollowfang Hall, Lasara," Kalen said, his voice soft, almost tender. "Welcome home." He released her hand, and for a moment, she felt a pang of loss, a sense of disconnection. But then, he gestured towards the house, his eyes inviting, and she knew that she was not alone. She was entering a new chapter of her life, a chapter filled with uncertainty and danger, but also with the promise of discovery, of belonging, and perhaps of love. A feeling that she was standing on the precipice of not just great change, but rediscovery. She couldn't remember the last time that feeling had been so strong. She took a deep breath and followed him. A deer, unafraid, crossed their path, pausing to look at them with liquid brown eyes before melting back into the forest. The silence of the deer's gaze felt like a blessing, a quiet confirmation. But what was it confirming? Chapter 5. The Mark of the Hollowfang. The air inside Hollowfang Hall was warm and inviting, scented with wood smoke, beeswax, and something subtly wild, a faint echo of the musky scent that clung to Kalen. The entrance hall was vast, with a high, vaulted ceiling and a massive stone fireplace where a cheerful fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Tapestries depicting scenes of wolves hunting, running free beneath the moon, and interacting with humans in ways that seemed both ancient and strangely familiar adorned the walls. Lasara felt a sense of awe, of stepping back in time. The house felt ancient, yet lived in, filled with a sense of history and a palpable sense of family. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, quiet emptiness of her own cottage back in Hollow Creek. Kalen led her through the hall, his footsteps echoing softly on the polished wooden floor. He didn't speak, but his presence was a comforting reassurance, a silent guide in this unfamiliar world. They passed several closed doors, each one hinting at hidden rooms and untold stories. Lasara's curiosity grew with each step, her fear slowly giving way to a sense of wonder and anticipation. He stopped before a large, ornate door at the end of the hall. "This is the library," he said, his voice a low murmur. "It is where we keep our history, our knowledge, our secrets." He pushed the door open, revealing a room that took Lasara's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes of all shapes and sizes. A massive, Intricately carved wooden desks sat in the center of the room, bathed in the warm glow of several strategically placed lamps. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and leather, a scent that spoke of centuries of accumulated wisdom. "This is incredible," Lasara whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. She had always loved books, loved the escape they offered, the knowledge they contained. But this was something else entirely. This was a repository of ancient secrets, a treasure trove of forgotten lore. Kalen smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, softening their intensity. "It is," he agreed. "And it is yours to explore, to learn from. You will find much here that will help you understand who we are and who you are destined to become." He gestured towards a table near the window, where a single book lay open, its pages illuminated by the soft moonlight. "This is the Book of Holofong," he said. "It contains our history, our laws, our essence. It is a living document, constantly evolving, constantly being added to." Lasara approached the table, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She looked at the book, its pages filled with elegant script and intricate illustrations. She saw drawings of wolves, of humans, of the Whisperwood, all rendered with a skill and artistry that spoke of a deep reverence for the natural world. As she reached out to touch the book, Kalen stopped her. "Careful," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The book is sensitive. It reacts to those who are connected to the Holofong." He took her hand, his touch sending a familiar jolt of energy through her. He guided her fingers to the page, and as her skin made contact with the ancient parchment, a strange sensation washed over her. It was as if the book were alive, pulsing with a faint, rhythmic beat, like a heart. And then she saw it. A faint, shimmering mark appeared on the back of her hand, just below her wrist. It was the shape of a wolf's paw, intricate and delicate, glowing with a soft, silvery light. It was the mark of the Holofong. Lasara gasped, pulling her hand back as if burned. What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It is the mark," Kalen said, his voice soft, almost reverent. "It is a symbol of your connection to us, of your belonging to the Holofong. It is a sign that you are one of us now." Lasara stared at the mark, her mind reeling. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly real. It was a visible manifestation of the bond that had been forged between her and Kalen, between her and the Holofong. It was a mark that would change her life forever. Does it hurt?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kalen shook his head. "Not physically," he said. "But it will change you. It will awaken something within you, something that has been dormant, waiting for this moment." He looked into her eyes, his gaze intense and unwavering. "It will connect you to the Whisperwood, to the creatures that dwell within it, to us. You will feel things you've never felt before, see things you've never seen before. You will become more." More. The word echoed in her mind. More than human? More than she had ever imagined possible? She looked at the mark again, at the intricate detail, at the soft, silvery glow. It was a symbol of transformation, of a journey into the unknown. It was a symbol of a new beginning. I don't know if I'm ready for this," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and excitement. Kalen smiled gently. "You are stronger than you think, Lasara," he said. "And you are not alone. We will guide you, teach you, protect you. You are one of us now. And we will face this together." He gently cupped the back of her hand, his thumb softly brushing over the newly formed mark. It didn't hurt, but it thrummed, resonating with a power she was only beginning to understand. She looked from the mark to his eyes, searching. What had she gotten herself into? And why, despite the terror, did a part of her feel right? Chapter 6. Between Two Worlds, Torn. The mark of the Holofong pulsed with a faint, rhythmic beat, a constant reminder of the profound shift that had occurred in Lasara's life. She felt a strange dichotomy, a pull between two worlds, the familiar comfort of her old life in Hollow Creek and the alluring, yet terrifying, reality of the Holofong. The days that followed were a blur of new experiences, of learning and adapting. Kalen, true to his word, guided her through the intricacies of Holofong life. He introduced her to the other members of his pack, a diverse group of individuals who, like him, walked the line between human and wolf. There was Anya, a fierce, independent woman with eyes the color of amber and a spirit as wild as the wind. There was Bran, a gentle giant with a booming laugh and a heart of gold, who seemed more comfortable in his wolf form than his human one. And there was Alara, not her grandmother, but a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to her, a descendant, perhaps, who carried the same name and the same deep connection to the Whisperwood. Lasara learned about their customs, their traditions, their deep reverence for the natural world. She learned about the delicate balance they maintained between their human and wolf sides, the constant struggle to control the primal instincts that surged within them. She learned about their enemies, the hunters who sought to destroy them, driven by fear and ignorance. She spent hours in the library, poring over the ancient texts, learning about the history of the Holofong, their connection to the land, their ancient pact with the humans, and the betrayal that had shattered that trust. She learned about the properties of herbs and plants, about the healing powers of the forest, about the magic that flowed through the Whisperwood. But the most profound change was happening within her. The mark was more than just a symbol, it was a catalyst, awakening senses she hadn't known she possessed. Her hearing became sharper, her sense of smell more acute. She could hear the whispers of the wind through the trees, smell the subtle scents of the forest, track the movements of animals with an uncanny ease. She found herself drawn to the woods, spending hours wandering the trails, feeling a connection to the land that she had never experienced before. She could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the rhythm of the forest, the life force that flowed through all living things. But the most unsettling change was the dreams. Vivid, visceral dreams of running through the forest as a wolf, feeling the wind in her fur, the earth beneath her paws, the thrill of the hunt. Dreams of Kalen, his golden eyes glowing in the moonlight, his touch sending shivers of both fear and desire through her. Dreams that left her breathless, disoriented, and strangely longing. She tried to maintain a connection to her old life, to the village of Hollow Creek. She visited her cottage, tending to her garden, sketching the familiar landscapes. But it felt different. The village felt small, confining, the people distant. She felt like an outsider, a stranger in a place that had once been her home. She tried to talk to her friends, to share her experiences, but she found herself holding back, unable to bridge the gap that had grown between them. They couldn't understand, wouldn't understand, the profound transformation she was undergoing. They would fear her, shun her, just as they had feared and shunned the Holofong for centuries. The only person she felt she could truly confide in was Kalen. He understood. He had experienced the same transformation, the same struggle to reconcile two worlds. He listened patiently, offering guidance and support, his presence a calming anchor in the storm that raged within her. One evening, as they sat together by the fire in the library, Lasara finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not the same person I was before. But I'm not fully one of you either. I'm caught in between, belonging nowhere." Kalen looked at her, his golden eyes filled with a deep understanding. "It is a difficult transition," he acknowledged. "It takes time to find your balance, to integrate your two selves. But you are not alone, Lasara. We are here to help you, to guide you." He reached out and took her hand, his touch sending a familiar warmth through her. "The mark is a gift," he said, his voice soft. "It connects you to something ancient, something powerful. It allows you to see the world in a new way, to experience life in a way that most humans can only dream of." "But what if I lose myself?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if the wolf takes over?" Kalen's grip tightened on her hand. "It won't," he said, his voice firm. "You are stronger than you think. You have a will of iron, a spirit that cannot be broken. You will learn to control the wolf, to harness its power, to use it for good." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "And I will be here, always, to help you." To remind you of who you are. To keep you grounded. He tilted her hand palm up and ran a finger along the delicate tracery of the mark, which seemed to burn hotter under his touch. You are ours, Lasara. But you are you first. Remember that. The simple, powerful statement resonated deep within her. The choice, the balance, was ultimately hers. But how was she supposed to choose, when both worlds pulled at her so strongly? Chapter 7. The Gathering Storm Within. Kaelin's words, "You are ours, Lasara. But you are you first," echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the delicate balance she was striving to achieve. The internal struggle intensified, the pull between her human and wolf sides becoming more pronounced, more demanding. The dreams grew more vivid, more frequent, blurring the line between reality and illusion. One night, she dreamt she was running through the forest with Kaelin, both of them in their wolf forms. The moon was full, casting an ethereal glow on the landscape. They ran with effortless grace, their paws barely touching the ground, their senses heightened, their movements synchronized. She felt a sense of freedom, of exhilaration, that she had never experienced before. She felt wild. But then the dream shifted. The forest grew dark, menacing. Shadows moved in the periphery, and the scent of fear filled the air. She saw hunters, their faces hidden, their weapons glinting in the moonlight. They were hunting her, hunting Kaelin, hunting the Holofong. She woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The mark of the Holofong throbbed on her wrist, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the walls of Holofong Hall. The dream disturbed her deeply, not just because of the fear it evoked, but because of the sense of belonging she had felt while running with Kaelin in her wolf form. It was a feeling she craved, a feeling of connection to something primal, something ancient. But it was also a feeling that terrified her, a feeling that threatened to consume her humanity. She found herself increasingly drawn to the woods, seeking solace in the quiet solitude of the ancient trees. She would spend hours wandering the trails, listening to the whispers of the wind, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. She began to practice shifting, trying to control the transformation, to harness the power of the wolf within her. It was a difficult, frustrating process. Sometimes, she could feel the shift begin, the tingling sensation in her limbs, the sharpening of her senses, the surge of primal energy. But she couldn't complete the transformation, couldn't fully embrace the wolf. Fear held her back. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing herself. Kaelin, sensing her struggle, offered his guidance. He taught her techniques to control her breathing, to focus her mind, to channel her energy. He shared his own experiences, his own struggles, his own triumphs. "The wolf is not something to be feared, Lasara," he said one afternoon, as they sat together by a secluded stream deep within the Whisperwood. "It is a part of you, a source of strength, of power. But it must be controlled, balanced with your human side." He showed her how to ground herself, how to connect with the earth, how to draw strength from the natural world. He taught her how to listen to her instincts, how to trust her intuition, how to use her heightened senses to navigate the world around her. Slowly, gradually, Lasara began to make progress. She could hold the shift for longer periods, could control her movements, could access the enhanced strength and speed of the wolf. But the full transformation still eluded her. The final barrier still remained. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, Lasara felt a surge of energy unlike anything she had experienced before. It was as if the mark of the Holofong were on fire, burning with an intense heat. She felt a pull, a primal urge to run, to hunt, to transform. She tried to resist, tried to hold onto her human form, but the urge was too strong. She stumbled, falling to her knees, her body convulsing. She could feel her bones shifting, her muscles stretching, her senses exploding. She looked at her hands and saw them transforming, elongating, becoming paws. She felt fur sprouting on her skin, a tail extending from her spine. She felt a surge of panic, of terror, but also a thrill, an exhilaration. She looked up and saw Kalen standing before her, his golden eyes filled with a mixture of concern and pride. He reached out his hand, and she instinctively reached for it, her paw meeting his hand. And then it happened. The final barrier shattered, and Lasara fully transformed into a wolf. A magnificent creature with fur the color of midnight, eyes the color of the moon, and a spirit as wild as the whisperwood. She stood there, trembling, on 4 legs, feeling the earth beneath her paws, the wind in her fur, the primal instincts surging through her. She looked at Kalen, and he nodded, a slow, approving smile gracing his lips. He, too, transformed, his body shifting and reshaping into a massive wolf with fur the color of dark oak and eyes of molten gold. He let out a howl, a call to the wild, and Lasara answered, her own howl echoing through the trees. The storm within had broken. She was no longer torn. But for how long? And what would be unleashed as a result? The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, listening. Chapter 8. Secrets in the Ancient Library. The exhilaration of the full transformation, the raw power and freedom of her wolf form, lingered even after Lasara shifted back to human. The experience had broken down a barrier within her, a fear that had held her captive. She felt a newfound confidence, a deeper connection to the Holophong, and a growing understanding of her own potential. However, the dreams continued, now even more vivid and unsettling. They were no longer just glimpses of the hunt or fleeting moments of fear. They were becoming more complex, filled with fragmented images of the past, of ancient battles, of a betrayal that had fractured the relationship between humans and werewolves. One recurring image haunted her, a silver ring, intricately carved with the image of a wolf and a crescent moon, lying on a blood-stained stone altar. The ring seemed to radiate a power, a sense of ancient magic, and it was always surrounded by an aura of sorrow and loss. Lasara knew, instinctively, that the ring was important, that it held a key to understanding the past, to healing the rift between the two worlds. She decided to delve deeper into the Holophong library, hoping to find some clue, some explanation for the recurring visions. She spent days poring over the ancient texts, searching for any mention of the ring, of the betrayal, of the ancient pact between humans and werewolves. Kalen, sensing her determination, offered his assistance, guiding her through the labyrinthine shelves, sharing his knowledge of the Holophong history. The past is a dangerous place, Lasara, he warned her one afternoon, as they sat together in the library, surrounded by towering stacks of books. Some secrets are best left buried. But some secrets need to be uncovered, Lasara countered, her voice firm. If we are to understand the present, if we are to heal the wounds of the past, we must face the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Kalen looked at her, his golden eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and concern. You are brave, Lasara, he said. But be careful. The past can be a powerful force, and it can consume those who delve too deeply. Lasara nodded, acknowledging his warning, but her determination remained unshaken. She continued her search, driven by a growing sense of urgency, a feeling that time was running out. One evening, as she was about to give up for the night, she stumbled upon a hidden compartment behind one of the bookshelves. Inside, she found a small, wooden box, intricately carved with the same wolf and crescent moon motif that she had seen on the ring in her dreams. Her heart pounded with excitement as she opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a single, leather-bound journal. The journal was old, its pages yellowed and brittle, its ink faded but still legible. She carefully opened the journal, her hands trembling with anticipation. The first page bore a name, written in elegant script, Allura. Below the name was a date from centuries ago. Lasara began to read, her eyes scanning the faded words, her mind racing to absorb the information. Allura's journal told a story of a time when humans and werewolves lived in harmony, a time of peace and prosperity. It told of a love between Allura, a powerful werewolf, and a human man named Liam, a love that was forbidden, a love that threatened to shatter the fragile peace. As Lasara read further, she discovered the truth about the silver ring. It was a symbol of the pact between humans and werewolves, a magical artifact that had been created to seal their bond, to ensure their continued coexistence. But the ring had been stolen, betrayed by someone within Alora's own pack, someone who sought to destroy the peace and unleash chaos. The journal ended abruptly, the last few pages torn out, leaving the story unfinished, the fate of Alora and Liam unknown. But Lasara knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the stolen ring was the key to understanding the recurring visions, the key to healing the rift between the two worlds. And she had a terrible feeling she knew who the betrayer might have been. A name whispered at the edge of her consciousness, a name associated with shadows and deceit in other texts she'd read. Morgoth. The journal slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers. The pieces were starting to fit together, but the picture they were forming was darker than anything she could have imagined. Chapter 9. The Price of Forbidden Knowledge. The name Morgoth, whispered from the depths of the ancient texts, resonated with a chilling familiarity. Lasara had encountered the name before, fleetingly, in other chronicles of Hollowfang history. It was always associated with darkness, with treachery, with a hunger for power that defied the natural order. The realization that Morgoth might be the key to the ancient betrayal sent a shiver of dread down her spine. She picked up Alora's journal, her fingers tracing the faded ink, feeling a profound connection to the woman who had written these words centuries ago. Alora's story was a tragedy, a testament to the destructive power of hatred and prejudice. But it was also a story of love, of courage, of a willingness to fight for what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Lasara knew she had to find the missing pages of a journal, the pages that held the truth about Morgotha's betrayal and the fate of the silver ring. She spent the next few days searching the library, meticulously examining every shelf, every book, every hidden compartment. Kaelin, sensing her growing obsession, tried to dissuade her, warning her of the dangers of dwelling too much on the past. "The past is a shadow, Lasara," he said one evening, his voice laced with concern. "It can haunt you, consume you if you let it. You must focus on the present, on the future." "But the past is connected to the present," Kaelin, Lasara argued. "The betrayal that Alora wrote about it still affects us today. The hatred, the mistrust, the fear, it's all rooted in that ancient wound." Kaelin sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I know," he said. "But some wounds are too deep to heal. Some battles are best left unfought." Lasara shook her head. "I can't accept that," she said. "We have to try. We have to find a way to break the cycle of hatred, to build a bridge between our two worlds." She continued her search, driven by a fierce determination, a growing sense of responsibility. She felt as if she were carrying Alora's burden, as if she were the one who had to finish what Alora had started centuries ago. One afternoon, while examining a particularly old and fragile volume, she discovered a hidden compartment within the book itself. Inside, she found a small, folded piece of parchment. Her heart pounded with anticipation as she unfolded the parchment, her hands trembling. It was a map, a detailed map of the Whisperwood, marked with ancient symbols and cryptic notations. And in the center of the map, circled in red ink, was a location she recognized, the ruins of an old chapel, a place she had seen in her dreams, the place where the silver ring had lain on the blood-stained altar. Lasara knew, instinctively, that the map held the key to finding the missing pages of Alora's journal and, perhaps, the silver ring itself. But she also knew that venturing into the ruins of the old chapel would be dangerous, that it was a place steeped in dark magic, a place where the shadows of the past still lingered. She decided to keep the map a secret, at least for now. She didn't want to worry Kaelin, didn't want to involve him in her increasingly risky quest. She knew he would try to stop her, would try to protect her, but she felt compelled to follow this path, to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. That night, she dreamt of the chapel again. She saw the silver ring, glowing on the altar, surrounded by an aura of sorrow and loss. She saw Morgoth, his face twisted with malice, his eyes burning with a dark, unnatural light. She saw Allura, fighting bravely, but ultimately falling, her lifeblood staining the ancient stones. She woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, her mind racing. She knew she couldn't wait any longer. She had to go to the chapel, had to face the shadows of the past, had to find the missing pages and the silver ring. As she slipped out of Hollowfong Hall under the cover of darkness, she felt a pang of guilt, a sense of betrayal. She was breaking Kaelin's trust, risking her own safety, and potentially endangering the entire Hollowfong. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was doing the right thing, that she was following a path laid out for her long ago, a path that led to a destiny she couldn't yet comprehend. The price of this knowledge was high, and she felt that price keenly in her guilt at leaving without telling Kaelin. But she was certain, with growing horror, that the cost of not acting would be even higher. The weight of the decision pressed on her as she began to walk toward the chapel. Chapter 10. A Dance with Destiny's Flames. The journey to the ruined chapel was fraught with a sense of foreboding. The moon, hidden behind a thick veil of clouds, offered little illumination, and the forest seemed to press in on Lasara, alive with unseen eyes and unheard whispers. The mark of the Hollowfong throbbed on her wrist, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. She moved stealthily, relying on her heightened senses, her wolf instincts guiding her through the treacherous terrain. She could hear the rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the faint scent of animals, both predator and prey. She could feel the presence of the ancient magic that permeated the Whisperwood, a power that was both alluring and terrifying. As she approached the chapel, the air grew colder, the silence more profound. The ruins stood silhouetted against the night sky, a crumbling testament to a forgotten past. The stone walls were overgrown with ivy and moss, the roof had long since collapsed, and the windows were empty sockets, staring out into the darkness. Lasara felt a shiver of apprehension, a sense of unease that settled deep within her bones. This was a place of sorrow, of loss, of a tragedy that had echoed through the centuries. This was a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where the spirits of the dead still lingered. She took a deep breath, steeling her nerves, and stepped through the crumbling archway that had once been the entrance to the chapel. The air inside was heavy with the scent of damp earth, decaying wood, and something else, something faint and metallic, like the lingering scent of blood. The moonlight, filtering through the gaps in the ruined roof, cast eerie shadows on the floor, illuminating the remnants of the altar, the broken pews, and the scattered fragments of stained glass. Lasara moved slowly, her eyes scanning the debris, searching for any sign of the missing pages of Allura's journal, any clue that might lead her to the silver ring. She found nothing. Frustration began to gnaw at her, a sense of despair that threatened to overwhelm her. Had she been wrong? Had she misinterpreted the map, the dreams, the ancient texts? As she was about to give up, she noticed something glinting in the moonlight, a faint shimmer beneath a pile of rubble near the altar. She knelt down, her heart pounding, and carefully removed the debris, revealing a small, metal box, rusted and covered in dirt. She pried open the box, her hands trembling. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay the missing pages of Allura's journal, and beneath them, gleaming with an ethereal light, was the silver ring. Lasara gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The ring was even more beautiful than she had imagined, the intricate carving of the wolf and crescent moon exquisitely detailed, the silver radiating a power that she could feel tingling on her skin. She carefully lifted the ring, and as her fingers touched the cool metal, a surge of energy pulsed through her, a wave of images flooding her mind. She saw Allura, standing before the altar, facing Morgoth, his face twisted with hatred and betrayal. She saw Morgoth strike Allura down, stealing the ring, and unleashing a wave of dark magic that shattered the peace between humans and werewolves. The vision ended abruptly, leaving Lasara breathless, disoriented, and filled with a profound sense of sorrow and anger. She now understood the full extent of Morgatha's treachery, the depth of his hatred, the devastating consequences of his actions. She quickly scanned the missing pages of the journal. They confirmed what she had seen in the vision, revealing Morgatha's motives, his lust for power, his desire to rule over both humans and werewolves. The pages also contained a prophecy, a cryptic verse that spoke of a time when the ring would be found again, when a descendant of Allura would rise to challenge Morgatha's legacy and restore the balance between the two worlds. Lysara realized, with a growing sense of both fear and determination, that she was that descendant. She was the one who had been chosen to fulfill the prophecy, to confront the shadows of the past, to heal the ancient wound. As she stood there, holding the ring and the missing pages, she heard a sound, a low growl that resonated from the shadows behind her. She whirled around, her heart pounding, and saw a figure emerge from the darkness. It was not Kaelin. It was a figure she had seen in her dreams, a figure of darkness and malice, a figure with eyes that burned with an unnatural light. It was Morgoth, or rather, a spectral echo of him, a remnant of his dark magic that still lingered in this place. He smiled, a cruel, predatory smile. "So, the little wolf has found her treasure," he said, his voice a chilling whisper. "But some treasures are best left undisturbed." He began to advance, a shadowy hand reaching out. The flames of destiny, once a distant flicker, were now roaring around her, and she knew there was no turning back. This dance, begun centuries ago, had found its next partners. Chapter 11. The Unveiling of Silver Creek. Morgatha's spectral form shimmered in the dim moonlight filtering through the ruined chapel, his eyes burning with a cold, malevolent fire. Lysara clutched the silver ring and the journal pages, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, a palpable sense of dread settling over her. "You should not have come here," Morgoth hissed, his voice a chilling rasp that seemed to scrape against her very soul. "This is a place of power, a place where the past holds sway. You have awakened something you cannot control." Lysara stood her ground, her fear battling with a surge of defiant courage. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but holding a core of steel. "I know who you are, what you did, and I won't let you continue to spread your darkness." Morgoth chuckled, a hollow, mirthless sound that echoed through the ruins. "Brave words, little wolf," he said. "But you are merely a pawn in a game that has been played for centuries. You are nothing compared to the power I wielded, the power that still lingers in this place." He raised his hand, and the shadows around him seemed to coalesce, forming writhing tendrils of darkness that reached out towards Lysara. She felt a wave of cold, paralyzing fear wash over her, threatening to overwhelm her. But then, she remembered Kaelin's words, "You are stronger than you think, Lysara." She remembered the feel of the wolf within her, the power of the mark, the connection to the Whisperwood. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and focused on the energy that flowed through her, the energy of the earth, the energy of the moon, the energy of the Holophong. She felt the mark of the Holophong burn on her wrist, a surge of power coursing through her veins. She opened her eyes, and they glowed with a faint, silvery light, mirroring the light of the ring she held. She raised her hand, and a wave of energy emanated from her, pushing back the shadows, forcing Morgoth to recoil. "I am not a pawn," Lysara said, her voice now firm and clear, resonating with a power she hadn't known she possessed. "I am a descendant of Allura, a protector of the balance. And I will not let you desecrate this place any longer." Morgoth snarled, his spectral form flickering with rage. "You cannot defeat me," he said. "I am a part of this place, a part of the darkness that permeates these stones. I am eternal." "Nothing is eternal," Lysara countered. "Even darkness can be overcome by light. Even the deepest wounds can be healed." She focused her energy on the silver ring, channeling the power of the ancient pact, the power of the bond between humans and werewolves. The ring glowed brighter, radiating a warm, golden light that filled the chapel, pushing back the shadows, weakening Morgatha's spectral form. Suddenly, a howl echoed through the night, a powerful, resonant sound that shook the very foundations of the ruins. Lasara recognized the howl. It was Kalen. He burst through the crumbling archway, his eyes blazing with a fierce, golden light, his body shifting, transforming into his massive wolf form. He lunged at Morgoth, his fangs bared, his claws extended. The spectral figure of Morgoth shrieked, a sound of pain and fury, as Kalen's attack disrupted his form. The shadows that had surrounded him dissipated, and his image flickered, becoming less substantial, less threatening. Lasara knew this was her chance. She focused all her energy on the ring, channeling the power of the ancient pact, the power of love and loyalty, the power of the Holophong. The ring pulsed with a blinding light, and a wave of energy emanated from it, washing over Morgoth, engulfing him in a golden glow. Morgoth screamed, a sound of pure agony, as his spectral form dissolved, disappearing into nothingness. The darkness that had permeated the chapel lifted, replaced by a sense of peace, of tranquility. Kalen, still in his wolf form, nuzzled Lasara gently, his golden eyes filled with concern and relief. She reached out and stroked his fur, feeling the warmth of his body, the strength of his presence. As Kalen shifted back to his human form, his face was etched with worry. "Lasara," he said, his voice hoarse, "what have you done? Why did you come here alone?" Lasara held up the ring and the journal pages. "I found them," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. "I found the truth about the past, about Morgoth, about the betrayal. And I found a way to heal the wound." Kalen looked at the ring, his eyes widening in recognition. "The Silver Creek ring," he whispered. "It was thought to be lost forever." He gently took it from her, examining it with a reverence that was almost painful to witness. "This changes everything." He looked back at her, the worry still etched on his features, but something else, too.
Pride.
And something deeper, something that sent a different kind of shiver through her. He knew she had risked everything, and he knew why. The chapel, once a place of shadows, felt different now, cleansed. But the cleansing had come at a cost, the revealing of a secret, a hidden truth that, even as it promised healing, also threatened to unravel everything. Chapter 12. Heartbeats in the Haunted Forest. The aftermath of the confrontation with Morgatha's spectral form left Lasara drained, both physically and emotionally. The weight of the knowledge she had uncovered, the power she had wielded, and the risk she had taken pressed heavily upon her. Kalen's presence, his unwavering support and concern, was the only anchor that kept her grounded. He had led her back to Holophong Hall, his arm protectively around her, his silence speaking volumes. He hadn't scolded her for her recklessness, hadn't reproached her for keeping secrets. He had simply been there, a steadfast presence in the face of the storm she had unleashed. Once back in the safety of the hall, they had examined the Silver Creek ring and the missing pages of Alora's journal together. The prophecy, cryptic as it was, spoke of a restoration of balance, of a healing of the ancient rift between humans and werewolves. But it also spoke of a sacrifice, of a price that had to be paid. Lasara couldn't shake the feeling that the prophecy was referring to her, that she was the one who had to make the sacrifice. But what was the sacrifice? And how could she possibly fulfill it? The days that followed were filled with a quiet tension, an unspoken understanding that everything had changed. The discovery of the Silver Creek ring had sent ripples of excitement and apprehension through the Holophong pack. It was a symbol of hope, of a potential future where humans and werewolves could coexist peacefully. But it was also a symbol of danger, of the forces that would oppose such a union. Lasara found herself spending more and more time with Kalen, drawn to his strength, his wisdom, his unwavering loyalty. They would walk together in the woods, sharing their thoughts, their fears, their hopes. They would sit together in the library, poring over the ancient texts, searching for clues for guidance. The connection between them deepened, growing beyond the initial bond forged by the mark of the Holophong. It was a connection built on shared experiences, on mutual respect, on a growing understanding of each other's hearts. It was a connection that whispered of a love that was both terrifying and exhilarating. One evening, as they were walking along the banks of Silver Creek, the stream that gave the ring its name, Kalen stopped and turned to Lasara, his golden eyes searching her face. The setting sun cast a warm glow on the water, creating a scene of breathtaking beauty. "Lasara," he said, his voice low and husky, "I need to tell you something." Lasara's heart pounded in her chest. She knew what he was going to say, had sensed it building between them, growing stronger with each passing day. But hearing the words, spoken aloud, was a different matter entirely. I care for you deeply," Kalen continued, his gaze unwavering. "More than I ever thought possible. More than I have cared for anyone in a very long time." Tears welled up in Lasara's eyes, tears of both joy and fear. She had longed to hear those words, had yearned for his affection, but she also knew the complications, the dangers, that came with such a love. "Kalen," she whispered, her voice trembling. I feel the same way. But it's complicated." The prophecy, the sacrifice. Kalen reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that streamed down her cheeks. "We will face it together," he said, his voice firm. "Whatever the future holds, whatever the sacrifice may be, we will face it together. As one." He leaned in and kissed her, a soft, tender kiss that spoke of a love that had been growing in the shadows, a love that was now blossoming in the light. It was a kiss that sealed their bond, a kiss that promised a future, uncertain as it may be. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate, more urgent. Lasara felt herself melting into him, her body responding to his touch, her heart overflowing with a love that defied logic and reason. They broke apart, breathless, their eyes locked in a gaze of mutual adoration. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the gentle murmur of the creek and the beating of their hearts. "I love you, Lasara," Kalen whispered, his voice raw with emotion. "I love you, Kalen," Lasara replied, her voice equally filled with emotion. They stood there for a long moment, embraced in each other's arms, the beauty of the setting sun reflecting in their eyes. It was a moment of perfect peace, of perfect happiness, a moment that seemed to transcend the darkness that surrounded them. But even in that moment of bliss, Lasara couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding, the sense that the storm was far from over. The prophecies still loomed over them, the sacrifice still awaited them, and the echoes of Morgatha's malevolence still lingered in the haunted forest, a constant reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. The happiness was real, but it was fragile, like a butterfly caught in a gale. She clung to it, to him, knowing that the peace might be fleeting, but the love was worth fighting for. Chapter 13. The Curse of Broken Bonds. The peace that Lasara and Kalen found in each other's arms was a fragile sanctuary, a temporary reprieve from the gathering storm. The prophecy of the Silver Creek ring, with its promise of restoration and its ominous hint of sacrifice, hung over them like a Damoclean sword. The more they delved into the ancient texts, the more they realized the complexity of the situation. The original pact between humans and werewolves hadn't simply been broken by Morgatha's treachery, it had been twisted, corrupted, into a curse that bound both races to a cycle of hatred and violence. The curse manifested in several ways. For werewolves, it amplified their primal instincts, making it harder to control their transformations, fueling their aggression and isolating them from the human world. For humans, it manifested as an irrational fear of the unknown, a deep-seated prejudice against werewolves, and a susceptibility to manipulation by those who sought to exploit the divide. The missing pages of Alora's journal revealed that the silver ring was not just a symbol of the pact, it was a key to breaking the curse. But the process was not simple. It required a ritual, a confluence of specific conditions, the full moon, the alignment of certain stars, and, most crucially, a willing sacrifice from a descendant of both Alora and the human she had loved, Liam. Lasara knew, with a chilling certainty, that she was that descendant. The blood of both humans and werewolves flowed in her veins, making her the only one who could potentially break the curse. But the nature of the sacrifice remained shrouded in mystery, veiled in cryptic verses and ambiguous metaphors. The weight of this responsibility pressed heavily upon her. She felt the burden of generations, the hopes and fears of both humans and werewolves resting on her shoulders. She confided in Kaylin, sharing her anxieties, her doubts, her fears. "I don't know if I can do this," she confessed one night, as they sat together by the fire in the library. "I'm not a hero, Kaylin. I'm just Lasara." Kaylin took her hand, his touch sending a familiar warmth through her. "You are more than you think you are," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You have a strength you haven't fully tapped, a courage that runs deeper than you realize. And you're not alone. We are in this together." His words gave her strength, but they couldn't completely dispel her fear. The thought of the sacrifice, of what it might entail, haunted her dreams, turning them into nightmares of loss and pain. One night, she dreamt of standing before the altar in the ruined chapel, holding the Silver Creek ring. The moon was full, casting an ethereal glow on the scene. But instead of Kaylin standing beside her, she saw a shadowy figure, a figure that resembled Morgoth, but was somehow different. The figure spoke, its voice a chilling whisper that seemed to penetrate her very soul. "The price of peace is high, little wolf," it said. "Are you willing to pay it? Are you willing to sacrifice everything you hold dear?" Lasara woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The dream felt too real, too vivid, to be dismissed as mere fantasy. It felt like a warning, a premonition of what was to come. She realized that the curse was not just an external force, it was also an internal one. It fed on fear, on doubt, on self-sacrifice. It was a poison that had seeped into the hearts of both humans and werewolves, perpetuating the cycle of hatred and violence. She knew she had to find a way to break the curse, not just for the Holophong, not just for the humans, but for herself, for Kaylin, for the future they both longed for. She had to find a way to overcome her fear, to embrace her destiny, to make the sacrifice, whatever it may be. The next morning, she told Kaylin about her dream, about her growing conviction that the curse was more than just an external force. Kaylin listened intently, his golden eyes filled with concern. "The curse is a powerful magic," he said. "It feeds on negativity, on despair. We must be careful not to let it consume us." He pulled her close to him. He whispered in her ear, his warm breath a shiver against her skin. "But love, Lasara. Love is a more powerful magic. Our love. Don't forget that." He wasn't just speaking to her, she felt he was speaking to himself, too, a reminder, a shield. The curse seemed to be closing in, but their love, newly declared, was a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The question was, would it be enough? Chapter 14. A glimmer of hope's embrace. Kaylin's words, "But love, Lasara. Love is a more powerful magic," resonated deep within her, a lifeline in the swirling sea of doubt and fear. She clung to that belief, to the strength of their bond, as they continued their quest to understand and ultimately break the curse of the broken bonds. They decided to seek guidance from the oldest and wisest members of the Holophong Pack, the elders who held the collective memory of generations. They traveled to a secluded part of the Whisperwood, a place where the ancient trees grew tall and majestic, their branches intertwined overhead, forming a natural cathedral. There, they met with Elder Rowan, a woman of immense age and wisdom, her eyes the color of faded moss, her face a tapestry of wrinkles that spoke of centuries of lived experience. She was a seer, a keeper of ancient lore, a guide to those who sought to understand the mysteries of the Whisperwood. Lasara and Kaylin presented Elder Rowan with the Silver Creek ring and the missing pages of Alora's journal. They shared their dreams, their fears, their hopes for a future free from the curse. Elder Rowan listened patiently, her gaze unwavering, her presence radiating a sense of calm and serenity. When they had finished, she spoke, her voice a low, rustling sound, like the wind whispering through the leaves. "The curse is a powerful force," she said, confirming their fears. "It has poisoned the hearts of both humans and werewolves for centuries. But it is not unbreakable. The Silver Creek ring is indeed the key, but it is not the only key. She explained that the ritual to break the curse required more than just the ring and the descendant of Alora and Liam. It required a willing sacrifice, yes, but not a sacrifice of life, as Lasara had feared. It required a sacrifice of something far more precious, a sacrifice of hatred, of prejudice, of fear. The curse feeds on division, Elder Rowan explained. It thrives on the animosity between humans and werewolves. To break it, you must bridge that divide. You must forge a new bond, a bond built on trust, on understanding, on love. She revealed that the prophecy spoke not only of a descendant of Alora and Liam, but also of a union, a joining of hearts between a human and a werewolf, a love that could transcend the ancient hatred and heal the rift between the two worlds. Lasara and Kaelin looked at each other, their eyes locking in a gaze of profound understanding. Their love, their bond, was not just a personal connection, it was a crucial element in the fight against the curse. It was the glimmer of hope, the spark of light that could dispel the darkness. Elder Rowan smiled, a rare and beautiful sight. You too, she said, her voice filled with a gentle warmth, are the key. Your love is the weapon that can defeat the curse. But you must be strong, you must be unwavering, you must be willing to face the challenges that lie ahead. She warned them that Morgatha's influence, though diminished, was not entirely gone. His followers, those who still clung to his dark ideology, would oppose them, would try to prevent them from breaking the curse. The path ahead will be dangerous, she said. But you must not falter. You must trust in each other, trust in your love, trust in the power of the Whisperwood. And you must remember, always, that love is the greatest magic of all. Lasara and Kaelin left Elder Rowan's secluded dwelling with a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of their destiny. They knew the challenges that lay ahead would be formidable, but they were no longer afraid. They had each other, they had their love, and they had the guidance of the ancient wisdom. As they walked hand in hand back towards Hollowfong Hall, the setting sun cast a warm, golden glow on the forest, illuminating their path. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers, and the birds sang their evening songs. Lasara looked at Kaelin, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. We can do this, she said, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. Together, we can break the curse. Kaelin smiled, his golden eyes shining with love and determination. Together, he echoed, his voice firm. Always. The forest seemed to embrace them, the ancient trees standing as silent witnesses to their vow. The glimmer of hope had become a flame, burning bright, promising a future that, while still uncertain, was no longer shrouded in complete darkness. But the path to that future was still fraught with peril, and they knew that the greatest test was yet to come. Chapter 15. Trials of Trust and Sacrifice. Armed with Elder Rowan's wisdom and fueled by their love, Lasara and Kaelin began to prepare for the ritual to break the curse. The prophecy dictated that the ritual had to be performed on the next full moon, which was only a few days away. They had little time to waste. They knew they couldn't do it alone. They needed the support of the entire Hollowfong pack, and, even more challenging, they needed to find a way to bridge the divide with the humans of Hollow Creek, to convince them to participate in the ritual. Kaelin rallied the Hollowfong, sharing Elder Rowan's insights and explaining the crucial role their love played in breaking the curse. The pack, initially hesitant and apprehensive, was ultimately swayed by Kaelin's unwavering conviction and Lasara's courageous spirit. They pledged their support, their loyalty, their willingness to fight for a future free from hatred and fear. Reaching out to the humans of Hollow Creek was a far more daunting task. Centuries of mistrust, fear, and prejudice had created a deep chasm between the two communities. Lasara knew that convincing them to participate in a werewolf ritual, to trust their ancient enemies, would be a monumental challenge. She decided to start with her closest friends, the few people in the village who had always shown her kindness and understanding, despite her eccentricities and her connection to the woods. She invited them to her cottage, her childhood home that now stood as a lonely, isolated building, and shared her story, revealing the truth about the Holophong, about the curse, about her love for Kaelin. Her friends were shocked, bewildered, and initially skeptical. They had grown up with the same stories, the same warnings, the same ingrained fear of the werewolves. But they also knew Lysara, knew her integrity, her honesty, her deep love for Hollow Creek. Lysara showed them the Silver Creek ring, explained the prophecy, and shared Elder Rowan's words about the need for a sacrifice of hatred, of prejudice, of fear. She pleaded with them to trust her, to trust Kaelin, to trust in the possibility of a better future. It was a long and difficult conversation, filled with tears, with doubts, with moments of both hope and despair. But slowly, gradually, Lysara began to break through their resistance, to chip away at the walls of fear and prejudice. Her friends, moved by her sincerity, her passion, and her unwavering belief in the power of love, agreed to help. They promised to spread the word, to talk to their families, their neighbors, to try to convince the rest of the village to participate in the ritual. But not everyone was receptive. There were those in Hollow Creek who clung to the old hatreds, who refused to believe in the possibility of peace, who saw the werewolves as monsters, as a threat to their way of life. Leading this faction was a man named Silas, a gruff, embittered hunter who had lost his family to a werewolf attack years ago. He was a powerful figure in the village, a man of influence and authority, and he was determined to stop Lysara and Kaelin, to prevent the ritual from taking place. Silas and his followers began to spread rumors, to sow discord, to incite fear and hatred among the villagers. They accused Lysara of being a traitor, of consorting with the enemy, of endangering the entire community. The village became divided, split between those who were willing to trust Lysara and those who sided with Silas. Tensions rose, and the threat of violence loomed large. Lysara and Kaelin found themselves facing a double trial, the trial of convincing the humans to participate in the ritual, and the trial of protecting themselves and the Holophong from Silas's growing hostility. It was a test of their trust in each other, their trust in their love, and their trust in the power of hope. One evening, as Lysara was returning to Holophong Hall from a meeting with her friends in the village, she was ambushed by Silas and his followers. They surrounded her, their faces filled with hatred and menace. "You're a disgrace to this village," Silas snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "You've betrayed your own kind, sided with the monsters who killed my family." Lysara stood her ground, her fear battling with a surge of defiant courage. "You're wrong, Silas," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but holding a core of steel. "The werewolves are not monsters. They are victims of the same curse that has poisoned your heart." Silas laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. "You're a fool, Lysara," he said. "And you're going to pay the price for your foolishness." He raised his hand, and his followers moved closer, their weapons glinting in the moonlight. Lysara knew she was in danger, that she was outnumbered, outmatched. But she refused to back down. She was not alone. She was always supported, even when she didn't think so. The wind picked up a howl piercing the night. The trial had begun. Chapter 16. The Hunters and the Hunted. Just as Silas and his men were about to close in on Lysara, a chorus of howls ripped through the night, echoing from the depths of the Whisperwood. The sound was both terrifying and majestic, a primal call that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened hunters. From the shadows of the trees, the werewolves of Holophong emerged, their eyes glowing with a fierce, golden light, their bodies shifting, transforming into their massive wolf forms. Kaelin led the charge, his fur the color of dark oak, his fangs bared, his growl a rumbling promise of retribution. Silas and his men, momentarily stunned by the sudden appearance of the werewolves, hesitated, their bravado faltering. They had expected to face a lone woman, not a pack of enraged beasts. "This is none of your concern, monsters," Silas shouted, trying to regain his composure, but his voice trembled with a hint of fear. Kaelin, in his wolf form, let out a deafening roar, a sound that shook the very ground beneath their feet. He lunged at Silas, forcing the hunter to stumble backward, his weapon falling from his grasp. The other werewolves followed Kalen's lead, engaging the hunters in a fierce, chaotic melee. The forest echoed with the sounds of growls, snarls, and the clash of steel against claw and fang. Lasara, though relieved by the arrival of the hollow fang, felt a surge of anxiety. She didn't want bloodshed, didn't want to see anyone hurt, human or werewolf. She knew that violence would only perpetuate the cycle of hatred, would only strengthen the curse. She stepped forward, raising her hands in a plea for peace. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice amplified by the mark of the hollow fang, resonating with an unnatural power. "This is not the way. We don't have to fight." Her words, surprisingly, had an effect. The fighting momentarily subsided, both humans and werewolves pausing, looking at her with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Kalen, shifting back to his human form, his eyes still blazing with a fierce intensity, stepped beside Lasara, his arm protectively around her. "She's right," he said, his voice hoarse but commanding. "We don't want to hurt you. We just want to break the curse, to end this cycle of hatred." Silas, his face contorted with rage and frustration, pointed a trembling finger at Kalen. "You lie," he shouted. "You're all monsters. You can't be trusted." Lasara took a deep breath, steeling her nerves. She knew this was her chance, her opportunity to bridge the divide, to appeal to the humanity that still lingered within Silas's embittered heart. "Silas," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I know you've suffered a great loss. I know you're in pain, but hatred won't bring your family back. It won't heal your wounds. It will only consume you, turn you into the very thing you despise." She held up the Silver Creek ring, the moonlight glinting on its intricate carving. "This ring," she said, "is a symbol of hope, of a chance for a better future. A future where humans and werewolves can coexist peacefully, where we can live without fear, without hatred." She explained the prophecy, the ritual, the sacrifice of prejudice and fear that was required to break the curse. She pleaded with Silas, with all the humans present, to join them, to participate in the ritual, to help heal the ancient wound. Silas stared at her, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. He looked at the ring, at Kalen, at the other werewolves, who had shifted back to their human forms, their expressions a mixture of defiance and vulnerability. The silence stretched, heavy and tense, the fate of Hollow Creek, of the Hollow Fang, hanging in the balance. Then, slowly, hesitantly, Silas lowered his hand. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can trust you. But I'm tired of hating. I'm tired of living in fear." A murmur of agreement rippled through the other hunters, their faces reflecting a similar weariness, a similar longing for peace. Lasara felt a surge of hope, a glimmer of light in the darkness. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. It was a crack in the wall of hatred, an opening for understanding, for reconciliation. "We have a chance," she said, her voice filled with a newfound optimism. "A chance to break the curse, to build a better future. But we have to do it together. Humans and werewolves side by side." The full moon was rising, casting an ethereal glow on the scene, illuminating the faces of both humans and werewolves, revealing a shared vulnerability, a shared hope. The hunters and the hunted stood together, on the precipice of a new era, a new beginning. But the ritual was still to come, and the true test of their commitment, their sacrifice, was yet to be faced. The night felt charged, electric. The wind whispered through the trees, sounding less like a warning and more like encouragement. Chapter 17. Where Shadows Meet the Dawn. The night of the full moon arrived, casting an ethereal glow over the Whisperwood, bathing the landscape in a silvery light. The air was thick with anticipation, with a palpable sense of both hope and trepidation. Humans and werewolves, united by a fragile truce, gathered at the ruins of the ancient chapel, the site of the original pact, the place where the curse had been forged. Lasara and Kaelin stood before the crumbling altar, hand in hand, their hearts beating in unison. They were surrounded by the Holofong pack, their faces resolute, their eyes shining with a fierce loyalty. And, interspersed among them, were the humans of Hollow Creek, their expressions a mixture of fear, curiosity, and a tentative hope. Silas, his face still etched with a lingering doubt, but his eyes reflecting a newfound willingness to trust, stood near the front, his presence a symbol of the fragile bridge that had been built between the two communities. Lasara held the Silver Creek ring, its silver surface gleaming in the moonlight, radiating a power that seemed to fill the ancient ruins. Kaelin carried a small, wooden box containing the ashes of Alora and Liam, their remains recovered from a hidden crypt beneath the chapel, a final act of honoring their memory and their sacrifice. As the moon reached its zenith, bathing the chapel in its full, luminous glory, Lasara began the ritual. She recited the ancient words from Alora's journal, her voice amplified by the mark of the Holofong, resonating with a power that seemed to shake the very foundations of the ruins. Kaelin opened the box containing the ashes of Alora and Liam, and together, they scattered the remains on the altar, a symbolic offering of love and sacrifice, a tribute to the past and a hope for the future. Then, Lasara placed the Silver Creek ring on the altar, the silver glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. She and Kaelin joined hands, their fingers interlacing, their love a tangible force, a beacon of hope in the darkness. They closed their eyes, focusing their energy, their will, their love on the ring, on the prophecy, on the desire to break the curse. They spoke the words of the ritual together, their voices blending in a harmonious chorus, a plea for healing, for reconciliation, for peace. As they spoke, the air around them began to shimmer, to crackle with an unseen energy. The mark of the Holofong on Lasara's wrist burned with an intense heat, and she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins, connecting her to the earth, to the moon, to the ancient magic of the Whisperwood. The Silver Creek ring pulsed with a blinding light, and a wave of energy emanated from it, washing over the assembled humans and werewolves, engulfing them in a golden glow. Lasara felt a sense of release, of a burden being lifted, of a darkness being dispelled. She opened her eyes and saw that the faces of both humans and werewolves were filled with a sense of awe, of wonder, of a profound peace. The fear, the hatred, the prejudice that had divided them for centuries seemed to dissolve, replaced by a sense of unity, of understanding, of shared humanity. Silas, his eyes filled with tears, stepped forward and extended his hand to Kaelin. Kaelin, his own eyes reflecting a similar emotion, grasped Silas's hand, their grip firm and unwavering. It was a moment of profound significance, a symbolic gesture of reconciliation, of a new beginning. The curse of the broken bonds, the ancient hatred that had poisoned the hearts of both humans and werewolves, was finally broken. But as the euphoria of the moment subsided, Lasara felt a sudden pang of loss. The mark of the Holofong, the symbol of her connection to the werewolves, the source of her newfound power, was fading, disappearing from her wrist. She looked at Kaelin, her eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and sadness. "The market's gone," she whispered. Kaelin smiled, a gentle, reassuring smile.
"It is," he said.
"The curse is broken, Lasara. You are free." Lasara realized the truth of his words. The mark had been a symbol of the bond, but it had also been a symbol of the curse. Now that the curse was broken, the mark was no longer needed. She was no longer bound to the Holofong by magic, but by choice, by love. She was still Lasara, the woman she had always been, but she was also more. She had faced her fears, embraced her destiny, and found a love that transcended the boundaries of race, of species, of ancient hatreds. The first rays of dawn began to appear on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. The shadows of the night receded, replaced by the promise of a new day, a new beginning. As the first rays of dawn broke over the assembled group, a sense of completion fell over them. Exhaustion, yes, but also triumph. The dawn mirrored the new beginning, the shedding of the old, dark past. They had faced the shadows, and together, they had found their way to the dawn. Chapter 18. The Weight of Untold Truths. The breaking of the curse brought a profound sense of peace, a palpable shift in the atmosphere of both Hollowfong Hall and Hollow Creek. The animosity that had lingered for centuries, the fear and mistrust that had separated humans and werewolves, seemed to dissipate like morning mist, replaced by a tentative hope, a fragile understanding. Lysara, though relieved and grateful, felt a lingering sense of unease. The disappearance of the mark of the Hollowfong had left her feeling strangely disconnected, as if a part of her had been lost. She knew it was for the best, that the mark had been a symbol of the curse as well as the bond, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She confided in Kaelin, sharing her anxieties, her doubts, her lingering sense of unease. Kaelin, as always, listened patiently, his golden eyes filled with understanding and empathy. "The mark was a part of you, Lysara," he acknowledged. "It connected you to us, to the Whisperwood, in a way that was both powerful and constricting. But it was not all of you. You are still connected to us, to the forest through your heart, through your spirit, through your love." He took her hand, his touch sending a familiar warmth through her. "The curse is broken," he said. "You are free to choose your own path, to define your own identity. You are no longer bound by ancient laws, by ancient hatreds. You are free to be Lysara." His words gave her comfort, but they didn't completely dispel her unease. She still felt a sense of unfinished business, a feeling that there were still untold truths, hidden secrets that needed to be uncovered. She decided to return to the Hollowfong Library, to delve deeper into the ancient texts, to seek a greater understanding of the history of the werewolves, of their connection to the Whisperwood, of the origins of the curse. She spent hours poring over the faded pages, searching for any clue, any hint, any detail that might shed light on her lingering questions. She discovered accounts of other rituals, other attempts to break the curse, all of which had failed. She learned more about Alora and Liam, about their love, their sacrifice, their unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. And then, she stumbled upon a hidden passage, a secret compartment behind a bookshelf that she had somehow missed before. Inside, she found a small, leather-bound book, its cover unmarked, its pages filled with a script she didn't recognize. She carefully opened the book, her heart pounding with anticipation. As she began to decipher the strange symbols, she realized that it was written in an ancient language, a language that predated even the oldest texts in the Hollowfong Library. It was the language of the first werewolves, the original beings who had walked the line between human and wolf, the beings who had forged the pact with the humans, the beings who had been betrayed by Morgoth. The book contained their history, their wisdom, their secrets. It revealed that the curse was not just a consequence of Morgoth's treachery, it was also a consequence of a deeper imbalance, a disruption in the natural order, a severance of the connection between humans, werewolves, and the Whisperwood itself. The book spoke of a time when humans and werewolves lived in harmony with nature, when they respected the earth, the trees, the animals, when they understood the interconnectedness of all living things. But as humans grew more powerful, more arrogant, they began to exploit the natural world, to dominate the creatures that shared their planet, to sever their connection to the earth. The werewolves, who had always been the guardians of the balance, tried to warn the humans, to guide them back to the path of harmony, but their warnings were ignored. Their pleas were dismissed. And then, Morgoth, a werewolf consumed by hatred and a lust for power, exploited the growing divide, unleashing the curse, shattering the pact, and plunging both races into centuries of conflict and despair. The book revealed that the breaking of the curse was only the first step. To truly heal the rift, to restore the balance, to ensure a lasting peace, they needed to reconnect with the Whisperwood, to rediscover the ancient wisdom, to re-establish the harmony between humans, werewolves, and the natural world. The weight of these untold truths settled heavily upon Lysara. It wasn't enough to simply break a curse. The entire system that had led to it needed to be addressed, understood, and changed. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and fear. The task was far larger than she'd thought. Chapter 19. A Love Forged in Fire. The revelation from the ancient book, the understanding of the deeper imbalance that had led to the curse, ignited a new fire within Lasara. She realized that breaking the curse was not the end of their journey, but the beginning of a much larger, more challenging task, the restoration of harmony between humans, werewolves, and the Whisperwood. She shared her discovery with Kaelin, and together, they began to formulate a plan. They knew they couldn't do it alone. They needed to involve both the Hollowfang Pack and the humans of Hollow Creek to educate them, to inspire them, to guide them towards a new way of living, a way of respecting the natural world, of honoring the interconnectedness of all living things. They started with a Hollowfang, sharing the wisdom of the first werewolves, teaching them about the ancient ways, about the importance of maintaining the balance, of protecting the Whisperwood. The pack, already deeply connected to the forest, embraced the teachings with enthusiasm, eager to reclaim their role as guardians of the balance. Reaching out to the humans of Hollow Creek was, once again, a more difficult task. The breaking of the curse had opened their minds, had softened their hearts, but centuries of ingrained beliefs, of fear and mistrust, were not easily erased. Lasara and Kaelin organized meetings, workshops, and guided walks through the Whisperwood, sharing their knowledge, their passion, their vision for a future where humans and werewolves could coexist peacefully, where the natural world would be respected and protected. They spoke of the importance of sustainable living, of reducing their impact on the environment, of reconnecting with the earth, of listening to the whispers of the wind, of honoring the spirits of the trees, of understanding the language of the animals. Slowly, gradually, they began to see a change. Some of the humans, inspired by Lasara's and Kaelin's dedication, began to embrace the new way of thinking, to adopt more sustainable practices, to show a greater respect for the Whisperwood. Silas, who had once been their fiercest opponent, became one of their strongest allies. He had been deeply affected by the breaking of the curse, by the realization that his hatred had been fueled by a lie, by a misunderstanding of the true nature of the werewolves. He used his influence in the village to promote the new way of thinking, to encourage his fellow humans to embrace the change, to join them in their efforts to restore the balance. But there were still those who resisted, those who clung to the old ways, those who feared the unknown, those who refused to believe in the possibility of peace and harmony. They saw Lasara and Kaelin as a threat, as disruptors of their way of life, as agents of chaos. They formed a small, but vocal, opposition, spreading rumors, sowing discord, trying to undermine Lasara's and Kaelin's efforts. They even attempted to sabotage their initiatives, to destroy the projects they had started, to drive a wedge between the humans and the werewolves. Lasara and Kaelin knew they had to be patient, to be persistent, to be unwavering in their commitment to their vision. They knew that change would not happen overnight, that it would take time, effort, and a great deal of understanding and compassion. But amidst the challenges, their love for each other grew stronger, deeper, more resilient. They found solace in each other's arms, strength in each other's support, inspiration in each other's unwavering belief in the possibility of a better future. One evening, as they were walking hand in hand through the moonlit forest, Kaelin stopped and turned to Lasara, his golden eyes shining with a love that transcended words. "Lasara," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "I know we have faced many challenges, and we will face many more. But I also know that, together, we can overcome anything. Together, we can create the future we both dream of." He knelt down on one knee, took her hand, and looked up at her, his gaze filled with a love that took her breath away. "Lasara Rathmore," he said, "will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my soulmate, for all eternity?" Tears welled up in Lasara's eyes, tears of joy, of gratitude, of a love that had been forged in fire, tested by adversity, and strengthened by their shared commitment to a better world. "Yes, Kaelin," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I will." He slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple band of silver, interwoven with a delicate strand of gold, a symbol of their intertwined destinies, of their enduring love. The ring felt right, a completion, not of magic, but of something far deeper, far more profound. Their love, tested by fire, by ancient curses, by prejudice and fear, had emerged stronger, purer. It was a love that would light their way, a love that would guide them, a love that would help them heal the world. Chapter 20. The Final Confrontation of Hearts. The news of Lysara's and Kaelin's engagement spread quickly through both Hollowfong Hall and Hollow Creek, bringing a wave of joy and celebration. It was seen as a symbol of hope, of a future where humans and werewolves could not only coexist peacefully, but also unite in love and partnership. However, the small faction of resistant humans, led by a man named Theron, who had always envied Silas's influence and harbored a deep-seated hatred for werewolves, saw the engagement as a threat, a final step towards the complete integration of the two communities, something they were determined to prevent. Theron and his followers began to plot, to scheme, to find a way to disrupt the wedding, to sow discord, to reignite the old hatreds, to shatter the fragile peace that had been established. They spread rumors, whispered accusations, and tried to incite fear and mistrust among the more hesitant members of the community. Lysara and Kaelin, aware of Theron's machinations, knew they had to be vigilant, to be prepared for any attempt to sabotage their wedding, to disrupt their efforts to unite the two communities. They decided to hold the wedding in the clearing where the original pact between humans and werewolves had been forged, the same clearing where the curse had been broken, a place that held a deep symbolic significance for both communities. They invited everyone, humans and werewolves, to attend, a gesture of unity, of inclusivity, of a shared future. They planned a simple ceremony, a celebration of love, of hope, of a new beginning. The day of the wedding arrived, bright and sunny, the whisperwood alive with the sounds of birdsong and the gentle rustling of leaves. The clearing was decorated with wildflowers, with ribbons, with symbols of both human and werewolf traditions, a testament to the blending of the two cultures. Humans and werewolves, dressed in their finest clothes, gathered in the clearing, their faces filled with a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and a lingering sense of unease. The threat of Theron's disruption hung heavy in the air. Lysara, wearing a simple, elegant dress made of white linen and adorned with wildflowers, walked towards the altar, escorted by Silas, who had become a father figure to her, a symbol of the reconciliation between the two communities. Kaelin, standing tall and proud at the altar, his golden eyes shining with a love that took Lysara's breath away, waited for his bride, his heart overflowing with joy and gratitude. As Lysara and Kaelin were about to exchange their vows, Theron and his followers, armed with torches and weapons, burst into the clearing, their faces contorted with hatred and rage. "This abomination will not stand," Theron shouted, his voice filled with venom. "We will not allow this union. We will not let the monsters take over our village." Chaos erupted. The humans who supported Theron attacked the werewolves, and the werewolves, initially hesitant to fight, defended themselves, their primal instincts taking over. Lysara and Kaelin, standing at the center of the turmoil, knew they had to stop the violence, to prevent the fragile peace from shattering. "Stop!" Lysara shouted, her voice amplified by a surge of inner power, a power that had grown stronger since the breaking of the curse, a power rooted in her love for Kaelin, her connection to the Whisperwood, her unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. Her voice resonated through the clearing, silencing the fighting, freezing both humans and werewolves in their tracks. Kaelin stepped forward, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "This is not the way," he said, his voice commanding. "Violence will not solve anything. It will only perpetuate the cycle of hatred, strengthen the darkness that we have fought so hard to overcome." He turned to Theron, his gaze unwavering. "Theron," he said, "I understand your fear, your anger. But hatred is not the answer. Love is the answer. Unity is the answer. Peace is the answer." Lysara stepped beside Kaelin, her hand reaching for his, their fingers interlacing, their love a tangible force, a beacon of hope in the midst of the chaos. "We are not your enemies," Lasara said, her voice filled with compassion. "We are your neighbors, your friends, your potential allies. We want to build a better future together. A future where humans and werewolves can coexist peacefully, where we can all live in harmony with nature, with each other." She held up their joined hands, a symbol of their love, of their unity, of their shared commitment to a better world. "This is not an abomination," she said. "This is love. This is hope. This is the future." Theron stared at them, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. He looked at the assembled humans and werewolves, their faces reflecting a similar mixture of confusion, doubt, and a glimmer of hope. Then, slowly, hesitantly, Theron lowered his torch. The other humans followed suit, their weapons dropping to the ground, their anger dissipating, their hatred replaced by a tentative acceptance. The final confrontation was not a battle of strength, but a battle of hearts. And love, ultimately, had triumphed. The clearing, once a scene of chaos and violence, was now filled with a profound silence, a sense of peace, of a new beginning. The wedding, disrupted by hatred, would now proceed, a testament to the enduring power of love, a symbol of the unity that had been forged, a promise of a future where humans and werewolves, together, could heal the world. Epilogue. The wedding of Lasara and Kaelin, held under the watchful gaze of the ancient Whisperwood, was a celebration of not just their love, but of the unity forged between humans and werewolves. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness, of understanding, and of enduring hope for a better future. The years that followed were not without their challenges. The scars of centuries of hatred and mistrust did not disappear overnight. There were still moments of tension, of misunderstanding, of lingering prejudice. But the foundation of trust and respect that had been laid, the bridge that had been built between the two communities, held firm. Lasara and Kaelin, working side by side, dedicated their lives to fostering understanding, to promoting harmony, to healing the wounds of the past. They established a council, composed of both humans and werewolves, to address issues, to resolve conflicts, to make decisions that benefited both communities. They continued to educate, to inspire, to guide their people towards a new way of living, a way of respecting the natural world, of honoring the interconnectedness of all living things. They taught the children, both human and werewolf, about the history of their two peoples, about the mistakes of the past, about the importance of empathy, of compassion, of forgiveness. Hollow Creek and Hollowfong Hall, once separated by fear and suspicion, became intertwined, integrated, a single community united by a shared purpose, a shared vision, a shared future. The Whisperwood, once a source of conflict, became a symbol of their unity, a sanctuary where both humans and werewolves could find solace, inspiration, and a connection to the ancient wisdom. Silas, who had once been their fiercest opponent, became one of their closest allies, a tireless advocate for peace and reconciliation. He had learned, through Lasara's and Kaelin's unwavering compassion, that hatred was a burden, a poison that consumed the soul, and that love was the only true path to healing. Theron, too, eventually came around, accepting the new reality, recognizing the futility of his resistance, and finding a measure of peace in the unity that had been forged. He never fully embraced the werewolves, but he learned to tolerate them, to respect them, to coexist with them. Lasara and Kaelin, though they never had children of their own, became the parents of the entire community, loved and respected by both humans and werewolves. They were seen as symbols of hope, of resilience, of the transformative power of love. Years turned into decades, and the silver in Lasara's hair became more pronounced. The lines on her face deepened, but her spirit remained as vibrant, as passionate, as unwavering as ever. Kaelin, though his werewolf lifespan was longer than that of a human, aged gracefully beside her, his golden eyes still shining with the same love, the same devotion, the same unwavering commitment to their shared vision. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of Hollowfong Hall, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of orange and purple, Lasara leaned her head on Kaelin's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. "We did it, Kaylin," she whispered, her voice filled with a sense of peace, of contentment, of a life well lived. "We broke the curse. We built a better world." Kaylin smiled, his golden eyes reflecting the beauty of the sunset, the love that had sustained them through all the trials and tribulations. "We did," he agreed, his voice a low rumble. "Together." He kissed her gently, a kiss that spoke of a love that had endured the test of time, a love that had healed the wounds of the past, a love that had created a future filled with hope, with peace, with harmony. The whisperwood, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, seemed to whisper its approval, its ancient trees standing as silent witnesses to the enduring power of love, to the triumph of unity, to the beauty of a world where humans and werewolves could finally live together, in peace. The future, once uncertain, now stretched before them, bright and promising, a testament to the courage, the compassion, and the unwavering love of two souls who had dared to dream of a better world and, together, had made that dream a reality. They sat in comfortable quiet, holding hands, the setting sun warming them both. The peace was profound, earned, and deeply, deeply cherished. The end.